But we're going to start off with the sale. There was a bit of breaking news that came in yesterday that some of you may not have seen. I think it's a news show, and as you know, we do talk about the news, funnily enough. But I think what I just said there about Amrabat, Chris Wheeler said it in the Mail yesterday that basically Liverpool were a whisker away from getting Amrabat, and they ended up going for Gravenberch, but they were really close to doing the deal. We'll talk about that. That to me just is a reality bite. We all might feel positive this morning. I certainly do. But let's not forget, whether we beat Man City 6-0 or we lose 3-0 to Brighton, the point is we're still always going to be banging against the ceiling. You know, that's what we're going to do. There's going to be ups and downs, but there's a ceiling. We're never going to go beyond with this ownership model, with the people that are working at that football club. The fact that Liverpool nearly got Amrabat, and it wasn't because he wanted to come to United that he didn't go to Liverpool. He'd been waiting for United for 2 months. Liverpool nearly swooped in and did the deal like they did with Gakpo. So, like Chelsea did with João Felix. Very, very lucky to get that deal done by the sounds of it. And obviously we saw last night how important it was. But look, let's talk about the sale, because this needs to happen. This does need to happen, and it is still on the agenda that it will happen. I know there is a lot of doomsayers out there that say it won't happen, it won't happen. It is still going to happen. Everybody's still leaking that it's going to happen, even from the Glazers side, the Rain Group, Qatar, Sir Jim. It's still being worked on. The problem is it's the whole when's it going to happen? Is it going to be next month? Is it going to be next year? But it's still on the agenda, and it still has to happen. The club is still in massive, massive amounts of debt. Old Trafford, for everyone who was there last night and everyone who's seen it recently, it is still rusting. The infrastructure at the club is still not good enough. We still have a very bad recruitment department. We still have a very subpar board and CEO. All these things do need to change. Will only change when we have a sale. So the latest on the sale, and this was coming in from Bloomberg, who are obviously a very big business news site. They're basically saying that this was breaking yesterday, but obviously with the game, we thought we'd keep it back. So Jim Ratcliffe is restructuring his offer to buy Manchester United in an attempt to break the deadlock in the long-running takeover saga. The British billionaire is working with his advisors to address concerns about the terms of his bid from minority investors inside. I think what this is all about is, if we just remind ourselves that the final bids, the second to final bids and everything like that, that was all back in sort of May, and we're now in nearly October. So there is a deadlock in relation to the sale. And from speaking to some people yesterday, and a couple of people who work with us were doing, making a few calls and stuff, the situation with the sale of Manchester United is there is a deadlock. The Glazers want a certain amount of money, and Sir Jim and Qatar won't do it. So Sir Jim at the moment is trying to figure out a way to move this forward, because what Sir Jim Ratcliffe was looking to do was buy somewhere between 50 and 60% of the club, keep the Glazers involved in Joel and Avram, but then you've still got 30% of the club that is owned by other shareholders who were concerned about the fact that Sir Jim would come in and buy half the club and they'd not make any money from it. So what we understand with this is just restructuring from Sir Jim to try and find a way to appease the other investors in the club, i.e. the 30% which is held by other shareholders. Thomas says, hi Mark, great result, but I couldn't help being pissed off with the media questioning Ten Hag on Sancho, even after a very good win. You know what I say about Sancho? Sancho. I mean, who is he? Like, it's the obsession with the English media. I'll come on to that in a minute. I've got a good point to make about that. But so yeah, look, there's a second part to this. Let me just move through this. So this is further bit. Proposals of both Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Qataris are still being considered by Manchester United, as well as a potential minority stake sale. Neither party has been able to meet the Glazers' expectations as of yet. And that is where we are at with this. So ultimately, the only real development on the sale is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is trying to alter his offer to get a deal through. And whether he can do that or not, we'll have to wait and see. But overarching, nothing has really changed. Qatar still want to buy the whole club, and Sir Jim cannot afford to buy the whole club. So whatever he is restructuring, it will still involve him not owning all the club. He wants full control, but it won't be a full sale. He's not changing his bid from 60% to 100%, and potentially you are still going to see the Glazers involved in some point. So, and that's where we are. And I think that my feeling on this is that, you get stories like this, and I think this is just really, really important to bring this in. This came in yesterday from Chris Wheeler. Jurgen Klopp was a whisker away from getting Amrabat until a last-minute hitch held up the deal, and Liverpool signed Gravenberch from Bayern for 34.2 million instead. That's terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying. And I spoke to a very good transfer journalist about this morning, and they said, well, it was always known that Liverpool were monitoring the Amrabat deal, and it was always known that Liverpool could move in and do that deal. Obviously, what I was also told is that Manchester United's deal with Amrabat is a loan deal. So Fiorentina, if Liverpool had gone in with a £25 million bid for Amrabat, which they could have done because they spent 34 on Gravenberch, then Fiorentina 100% would have took that deal. So then, when you're talking about a last-minute hitch, I mean, look, we'd all like to think that Amrabat said, no, my heart's set on Manchester United, and I'm sure that's what he'd say now because he is there. But the reality is that situation makes me really worried about the sale situation, because that's just a stark reminder of what's going to happen in January, what's going to happen next summer, what's happened last summer, what happened last January. Whilst we're owned by the Glazers, and they've got their minions running around doing transfers for them and running the club for them, these sort of things will keep happening. Now, we got away with it this time. We got away with it. We got the player. But to imagine we were a whisker away from losing that deal. And what would we have done then? Nothing. We could only afford a loan for him. So there wasn't going to be anybody else coming in. It would have been... Last night, there wouldn't have been an Amrabat. There wouldn't have been anybody. It would be what we had last night. And that is just terrifying how thin the ice is for Ten Hag when he's trying to rebuild Manchester United, that very nearly Amrabat was wearing a Liverpool shirt. And that comes down to what we're talking about. That comes down to very positive this morning. I think Ten Hag's doing a good job. I think the players responded really, really well. But that's what you're up against. That is what you're up against. This sale is so important because we could be a really successful football club. I really think we could be, but we're always going to get held back by the fact that we're so amateur when it comes to the way the club is run.